Season 7 of Sun Coaches Podcast is proudly brought to you by Titan Sensor. Season 7. That was my number in high school, so maybe this will be lucky for us. We'll see. You know, I've learned over time that when somebody's talking about something you really don't want to talk about, you just can always throw in there, hey, I knew this guy once, and then just pretty much make up whatever you want to, and they won't listen to it. They'll get off track. And you don't have to talk about the uncomfortable thing anymore. Coach, like we do every week, tell everybody where you grew up and where you're from. Sun Coaches Podcast, where not everybody has a funny story, but everybody has a story. Hope you enjoy Season 7 of Sun Coaches Podcast. Sun Coaches is proud to partner with Titan Sensor for Season 6 and 7. Titan is made in the USA. Proudly founded and based in Texas. When you connect with Titan, you are not alone. You can collaborate and share templates with other coaches across the country to build reports and foster competition. Used by programs such as State 6A Georgia State champion Grayson High School, Titan can tailor a package to fit your needs. The eye in the sky never lies. Improve your team's performance with Titan. Welcome to Sun Coaches Podcast. Season 7 is the man of constant sorrow and the executive director of the Georgia Fired Football Coaches Association coming to you today. And today we will be discussing the big brawl that happened in round 2 between Brunswick and Gainesville, round 2 reactions and jobs. We're also going to release another episode probably on Wednesday, due to the fact that at the time of the recording, the GHSA has not ruled on the events of Friday night. But first of all, let me thank my man, Coach Ed, for being on with me.
Always excited to be your coach and ready to give some context to some good action and some fun topics that sadly occurred over the weekend.
Well, Coach, I know that we both have friends on both staffs, and I've spoken to one of my good friends on the Gainesville staff, and I know you've been in contact with both staffs, so you've actually done a little bit more research, or actually you've done a lot more research than I have. But for those that don't know, on Friday night, as the score was 42-0 in the third quarter, a fist fight broke out down in Brunswick between Gainesville and the Brunswick Pirates. At the time, Gainesville was ahead 42-0. The game is over for all intents and purposes, and this occurs, to which there's video evidence as the game was recorded by NFHS that you could have been watching, and you see that the sidelines from both teams virtually empty. This has now resulted in what is the Georgia High School Association going to do about it? My stance is going to be very clear as far as this is not, my opinions are not an indictment on the Brunswick or the Gainesville coaching staff or football programs, but one which I think most coaches will take, that is seeing how the GHSA will apply their own rules to a situation regardless of who's involved. Now, you've actually talked to the staffs, and you have a broader take of the ramifications of whatever they decide, Coach. So I'll let you go from here.
Yeah, so I was lucky enough to, and both staffs have been kind enough to reach out and humor me and kind of give me their side of the story of what led up and kind of the communication that took place after the incident and kind of where things sit now. And, I obviously put out the recording on X, and it generated a natural, level of response that rivals probably anything else I'll ever put out. But one thing is obvious is there is this very clear line of coaches and your paying customers and your mommies and daddies. And to be honest with you, what the biggest takeaway that I had from talking to both teams is, number one, neither team coaches what took place. Both teams have a plan in place that they have both confirmed to me practice and have emphasized with their kids. When a fight or some altercation breaks out on the field, everybody knows what they're supposed to do. The coaches have places they're supposed to go to make sure that anything that is taking place, we mitigate the level of error that takes place. And in this case, as you can see on film, it happened in a very, very quick, snap judgment of a moment to where, and this is honestly where I sit here and go, we have to look at this double-edged sword. We've got football teams where you harp on teaching them to be together, be a team, protect one another, and come to each other's defense. And then in a moment like that, where you see a teammate of yours in an altercation, whether they're the aggressor or the aggressee, you see teams going and defending that person. And although it's wrong, nobody's going to sit here and say it's right. I can also understand that when you're experiencing something that you haven't experienced all year, like Brunswick's kids down 42-0, they are getting, beat like they haven't been beaten all year. They are in a place where you've kind of backed them into a corner, and as the game continues to go on, those kids out there, that DB, for instance, again, at some point, his fight or flight kicked in, and we all know which side of that he was on. And when that took place, I think you saw a team respond on both sides to their teammate in an altercation. I don't agree with it. I don't think that it is acceptable in any way, shape, or form, just like the Brunswick coaches and just like the Gainesville coaches. One thing that I can 100% say is the information I've got from the Gainesville coaches could not be more complimentary and thankful to the Brunswick coaches for the way that they have handled this entire situation. It's unfortunate, and sadly, it is a black mark on a very successful season. One that I think that naturally people are going to judge them by, but hopefully, this is one of those times where you're not judged by your worst moment, because they've done an excellent job at Brunswick. They have. And this is an unfortunate event that took place, and you're going to see the character of this team and the character of the coaching staffs of both teams moving forward. Because, make no mistake, was Brunswick the agitator in it? 100%. 100%. But the one thing I want to make sure is very well known is everybody plays a part. And Gainesville, you're up 42-0. You are handling your business, and I've got nothing against people winning. I got nothing against people, winning however they win. But the old adage that everybody hears is win with class and lose with class. And that's a lot easier to say and a lot harder to practice. But what I would encourage, and what the GHSA should also make sure that they handle, is if you score a touchdown and immediately start dancing for the team videographer in the end zone, I'm sorry, that's a flag. It's a flag. Because at some point, you're going to piss off the wrong person, and they're not going to lose with class anymore. If you want to dance for your videographer, go and do it on the sideline. I've got no problem with you celebrating with your teammates over there. But if you're going to rub in my face on the field, again, you're now hoping that 14 to 18-year-olds are able to keep their composure all the time, and we all know that that's never the case. So, although there's a bunch of factors that went into it, ultimately, there were several, videos that were sent to me that showed a lot of the same, interactions that took place and who's at fault doing this, that, or the other. And I got to be honest with you. I think that it was such a quick snap judgment by both teams. But no matter what, if this were, if this were Discovery versus Appalachia, we know what the result would be. We don't have to sit here and wonder who's getting suspended or if they're going to forfeit a game. I think on the other side of that coin, though, if we make Gainesville forfeit the quarterfinal game, you're also giving Langston Hughes a bye week, and yeah, they get to go watch Jackson County and Rome play in that quarterfinal game. So there's definitely dominoes here. I think that there's a lot to be said about the whole situation, but ultimately, I think that you need to hold people accountable, and you need to take the opportunity to learn. There's definitely lessons to be learned here. I also believe that part of the issue is I've had parents and grandparents of some of the people that were the instigators reach out and defend their child, and I'm sorry, you're the problem. You're part of the problem because you need to hold your kid accountable. When they do something wrong, you got to call them on it. You don't sit there and say, "Hey, good job, stand up for yourself." Now, it's football. It's football. And at the end of the day, he made a decision that was selfish, foolish, and reactive because he had his pride hurt. Okay? And as the parents or guardians or whoever, it's your job to help him with those big emotions. Okay? Because y'all not enforcing that at the home makes it harder on teachers, harder on coaches. So I wish the GHSA could punish some parents, but sadly we're in a situation where I do think that the kids ultimately are going to be held accountable for their actions. I don't know how you can ask teams to write down the numbers of the teams that entered the playing field. I do wish the rule was a little bit better worded to where it could mention, enter the playing field and make contact in any way, shape, or form, whether verbally or with your hand or foot or whatever, with the opposing team. Because I saw a bunch of people acting as a team on both sides. The team went and did this, so the team, the team was together in this action. So you punish the team or you reward the team. And I hate that that's how seniors at Brunswick are gonna. That's their last time on that field. And I hate for the seniors at Gainesville that they're not going to have an opportunity to finish their careers and their journey if that's ultimately the decision that's made. But before I give my further opinion, Coach, you got anything you want to say on that?
Yes, actually. I think I speak for most of the coaches in the state when all of those things are fine, they're well and good. But rules are in place for a reason. And we have seen in the past what the Georgia High School Association decides, what rules they decide to enforce, and which rules they decide not to enforce. And I think it's a whole lot easier for you to write down the numbers of the people that stayed on the sideline for both teams than the ones that came across the sideline. Now, I understand and I empathize with everything that you said, arguing the other side. But I think the biggest thing is going to be for us is to sit back and watch and see what the reaction is. Because you said Discovery Appalachia. Well, Warren and Wheeler played Friday night. If that happens to Warren County and Wheeler County, we know what's going to happen because they're not Georgia high school brand name darlings. They've never played, it's been 70 years since Warren County played for a state championship in football. Wheeler County never has. I guarantee you that Clinch County would be getting a bye. I would be willing to bet. I can't say I guarantee it, but I'd be willing to bet. So I think that this, again, for a lot of us, this has nothing to do with, a lot of people throw shade at Gainesville and they're jealous, and, Coach Niblett and he wears different outfits and all this other stuff, and that's whatever. I mean, that's just the way he is. I've met him. He is what he says he is. When he says he is a Christian, God-fearing man, he lives that life. He really does. He doesn't put up with any of the, some of the guys that act like they're that way. Or they beat their chest and put Bible verses on the internet and look at me and like the Sadducees and the Pharisees on the Temple Mount praying in public. He's not that guy. He is what he says he is. So it has nothing to do with them. I know Coach Grady's a great coach, great guy, runs a great program. It has nothing to do with either one of these programs. This whole thing in my mind has to do with, I'm just sitting back and I can't wait to see what the Georgia High School Association decides to do. Because the fact that Hughes would get a bye, oh well, them's the breaks. That it's the rule. If you don't want this to be the rule, then change the rule. I agree with you. They're going to respond. They're going to react. And if they come on the field and they don't throw hands, they don't touch anybody, then they shouldn't be ejected. You get it all back under order, get the ones that perpetrated the problem, the ones that were in the mess, get rid of them, everybody else. Now, prior to that, in most situations I've been in, before it gets to that level, I've been in situations where the officiating crew gets both teams together and says, look now, that's enough. We ain't putting up with this crap. We're going to throw you out. We're going to flag you. You're going to whatever, but we ain't having no mess. Now, I'm not putting any of the blame on the officials either, because I also believe that we live in a land where children are no longer made to be accountable. They're not accountable in the classroom. They're not accountable in the streets. They're not accountable on the ball field. And we are now seeing what we get. And we've got a generation of parents that will defend them to the death, even when they're wrong. I don't want to kill them. I don't want them ruined for life, but they have got to learn a lesson. And this is a very teachable moment for that. However, I digress. My whole take on this whole thing is, how is the Georgia High School Association going to apply this rule? Because something happened several years ago where a Hall of Fame coach's team fought, and everybody but 7 children seen the video. I've seen the video, counted them. All but 7 left the sideline. His team won. No action was taken, only the people that participated in the fight, and he got his 300th win the next week. That happened. That's fact. That's not MOCS's opinion. That's not hyperbole. That is what it is. And in my autistic little mind, I just can't wait to see and have it explained to me and rationalized to me the decision that they make, because by rule, there's only one decision. Everyone that left the field of play is ejected. And from what we saw on the video, therefore, they're either going to roll into Langston Hughes with about 13 kids, or there ain't going to be a game. And I'd say there's not going to be a game. Is that fair to the seniors of Gainesville? No. Is it fair that Brunswick's going to be, the whole city of Brunswick's going to be labeled, oh, they're thugs and they fight? No. But you know what? The fair is where you win blue ribbons and they show pigs. This ain't got nothing to do with what's fair. It's got to do with, are we going to enforce the rules that we have in place, or are we not? Because if we're not, then why do you exist? And I think that is a lot of what the other coaches in the state are going to sit back, and they're not going to say it publicly because they'll lose their job. I'll say it because I don't care. Right is right and wrong is wrong. And that's just the way I feel about it. And the Georgia High School Association is either going to apply the rule as they have written it, or they're not. And we're going to respond. We're going to come back on, and we're going to have another episode where we react to what they decided to do, and that's what I'm waiting for, is what they're going to do, because it's bad either way. I mean, it sucks either way. No matter what, they can't be right. They're either going to pacify, parents and people that believe that rules are meant to be stretched and not broken, or they're going to go by the letter of the law. So that's my take on it.
Well, and I would agree with your sentiment on it as well. After speaking with both coaching staffs and really thinking about it on my own, I got to be honest with you. I think that when I think about the GHSA and expecting them, if there's one constant with them, it is the fact that there is no enforceability on things of their rules when it comes to recruiting, when it comes to different odds and ends. If you're at a county school, it's harder for you to get a kid in the door than if you're at a city school. And if you're at a brand, definitely a lot easier to get a kid in. But the reality of this is it going to be more of the same, where the rule is, that rule is not for me. That rule is for thee, not for me, right? And so, to me, I find this going to be so interesting, because no matter what, you're going to piss people off. But that's the name of the game, okay? You're probably not doing your job if everybody's happy. But whatever decision you make, you need to stand by it, and you need to provide your justification for it. If you just release that we're suspending, and making games will forfeit the next football game without even providing a reference to the rule in which they broke and how y'all came to said decision, then you're not giving context. Now people get to write their own stories about it. People get to make up their own knowledge of it. And if I have another person reach out and say, well, games will just have a judge file an injunction and they'll still get to play. Okay, cool. Guess what? That judge is going to look and see the bylaws, how they're written, and he's going to go by the letter of the bylaws and say, oh, okay, y'all broke the rule. They that's the reality. They're not going to supersede the GHSA on this. And anybody who is naive enough to think that you have a case, again, sure, go and waste taxpayer dollars. Go ahead. But I'm telling you right now, you don't have a case. And if you already are thinking about having to take that to a judge, you already know you're guilty. So I really think that, and let me be very clear, neither Gainesville or Brunswick is saying that they're innocent. Okay? Like, that's not what is being shared. Both of them understand the position they put themselves in, as well as the GHSA. Now, one thing that I would, again, and I know we railed on officials and situations and bad calls, a week or two ago. I do want to make sure it's known that after rewatching the game and speaking with people who were at the game, there was not great game control. There were instances that, it was a chippy football game. It's a passionate game, and you're fighting for a chance at the quarterfinals. And, I can sit here and critique, just like everybody else, who is, who are we looking at? We're looking at that back judge and how quickly he throws his flag, throws the whistle, whatever. Could he have done more? Of course. I do think that this is another part of that accountability piece, to where that after action report should be made public. That report that has to be submitted 24 hours after the incident, I would love for that to already be made public so we can get the opinions of the officials on the field as well as the athletic leadership on both sides of that after action report. Because I think it would provide additional context. The issue with what's going to take place here, I don't think we're going to get the context. I don't think they are understanding of just the importance of being able to say, hey guys, this is our decision. You can like it, you can hate it, but here's our justification. You can even disagree with our justifications, but we're putting it out there, and that's why we made the decision. It's going to set a precedent one way or the other. One way or the other. But, you know, we all know what the rule states. We all agreed to it. We communicated to our players. So, to me, it's very black and white on that. I do think that they're going to try their best to make sure Gainesville is able to play in that game against Langston Hughes. I think, the advice that I gave, somebody at Gainesville was if they asked for the numbers of the kids on the team, I'd take everybody that was on bus 2 that wasn't worth the hotel room. And I think they need to probably be the numbers that you write down because, heck, you got to know your role, right? And that's your role. But all kidding aside on that, when you leave it up to the coaches to write out all the numbers, I mean, hey, what stops you from writing down little Timmy who is there to, ride and eat a free meal and watch the game? I mean, in all honesty, what's to say you don't do that? So, again, I think that there's just a hypocritical way of looking at all of it, but ultimately I do hope that whatever decision is made, they provide context and they provide their justification. I know that that's a pipe dream, but that's my ask of the GHSA. Again, if they came to me, at the GHSA and said, "Hey, tell me what your decision is," guys, you get a game notes version of that shit. You'd see the justification to why I'm making the decision, and it is what it is. You can disagree with me all you want, but that's my justification, and it's not changing. So again, I think that there's a lot to look at, but I'm interested to see kind of what they end up deciding. But my gut's telling me that they're going to find a way to allow Gainesville an opportunity to play that game against Langston Hughes, even at a 50% roster.
Well, and we would all like to see the game played. I mean, we would much rather see a game played than somebody move on this deep in the playoffs or at any time really because of a forfeit. But we'll move on from this topic because we're gonna specifically talk about nothing else but whatever the Georgia High School Association decides to do. I agree with you 100% that it'd be nice if we'd get a justification of whatever it is they decide to do. And moving forward, there were a lot of blowouts in the second round. There was a lot of travel. There were a lot of lopsided games in round 2. Now, round 3 coming up is when I would expect people to be on the road and travel. But we had 3 or 4 contests where people were traveling over 300 and something miles one way, or not one way, round trip on the in the second round. Was there anything in the second round that really stood out to you? I saw mostly chalk.
Well, I think one thing needs to be pointed out in our highest classification. You definitely had, North Cobb has had a very good program, and they've had good seasons, but they have struggled to get out of that second round for, I guess it's been the 7th consecutive season. They've been at home for most of those. I think to break the juju for them, they need to find a way to play a away playoff game in that second round. But that was the surprise kind of in 7A for me. Everything else was chalk. And then I think that, probably the most notable game, you have, Jackson County and Coach Mobbs, they were able to beat two-time defending champion Milton. And really and truly, after the first two possessions, I would have sat there and said Milton's got this. They were definitely the team that was the aggressor the whole time, and then it's almost like a switch flipped. And once that kind of belief of, hey, we can do this, we can compete, we can, have success, I felt like Jackson County played harder and longer than Milton. And again, that's a massive, just super impressed with the job Coach MOCS and his staff's been able to do. And they now have Rome coming in, and again, you're in the quarterfinals now. There are no quote unquote bad teams, right? There are no holes in these other teams. You're playing, good football teams because there's only 8 left standing in your class. So that's going to be a very, very interesting football game because Rome and Houston County, another super exciting game that honestly kind of felt like a heavyweight fight there for a bit. Both teams were throwing haymakers at times, and Rome was able to put the clamps down late to get that one. As for in 4A, again, pretty much chalk. Cartersville had that game over with Warren Robins in the first quarter. It's 36-0. I mean, Cartersville is good. I mean, and Warren Robins and Shane Sams, they've done a great job. Like that's a good football team and a resilient football team. But it was a buzzsaw up in Cartersville. Again, Creekside is probably still the belle of the ball there, but it'll be interesting to see how those top classifications go. Do you have anything on those top classifications?
No, other than the Jackson County winning, everything else was pretty much chalk. We get a rematch of Grayson and Carrollton next round. Everything went pretty much like we thought it would in those classifications. As far as the way I looked at it.
Yeah, and I think when you go down to AAA, one of the games that I think was a much-watched game, if you just enjoyed, watching creative offensive football, was going to be the LaGrange and North Hall game, and it didn't disappoint. LaGrange has an excellent quarterback and a running back that, for the last several weeks has really come on strong, and that ended up being it was a one-score game, all game, and then, really the last 6 minutes of that fourth quarter, it was fumble, and another, situation that ended up making it pull away for LaGrange. But, that was one of the more entertaining ones. But they upset North Hall, and Cairo upset Troop, and they now get to come up here to Northeast Georgia and play Jefferson. And, I still think after watching them, Sandy Creek's probably the best. They've got a Greek god at running back, and good luck tackling him. Double A was all chalk. There's literally nothing I can say about it. It was just all chalk. And then Class A D2, Jenkins County won. So that was probably the only non-chalk one. And then our lowest classification had Pepperell and Raven still being the only double-digit seeds left. And I was impressed with Fitzgerald beating Dublin in the way that they did. So hats off to them and that staff. But that's definitely, I would say if there was one game in that lowest classification that I was kind of made me do a double take, it was definitely Fitzgerald holding Dublin to 7 points and putting on them a little bit.
I think my biggest takeaway was the Thomasville-Toombs County game apparently was one for the ages. And the Worth County-Bleckley County game was a football game, if you like scoring points. 38-35, they went back and forth all night. And Coach Hammond's done a great job down there at Worth County bringing them back. It's been since the 90s, the late 90s, early 2000s, since they've been relevant. And he's done a great job there. And of course, Coach Laster does a great job at Bleckley County every year, and they had a good run. And but the Toombs County Thomasville game was a football game, and then in the lowest classification, the Brooks County Johnson County game was a football game. If you like defense, it came down to the wire there, and but everything else was pretty much chalked up, as you said, in the lowest classification. Jenkins County winning now. They draw. They get to go to Bowden, which that'll be fantastic for them. Nice trip across the state, and I still think Bowden's the team to beat in the lowest classification. In the next classification, now you've got the matchup coming up in that lower left quadrant. You got it's going to be interesting. It's going to be, like you said, at this stage of the game, everybody's good. So it's not like, there might be one or two surprises, but there's not anybody in there that doesn't deserve to be there and didn't earn their way in there.
Absolutely. So I'm excited to see the quarterfinals and seeing these very competitive football games. And I guess now's as good a time as others to move on to our quarterfinal preview. But to me, was there anything else you wanted to make sure we hit on from this past week?
No, that was pretty much it. I mean, the quarterfinals are set. Waiting on what the GHSA is going to decide, but they have it listed on the bracket as Hughes will play Gainesville. And you do a better job of keeping up with who's playing who than I do. I know in the smaller classifications just because that's what I'm in. But there's going to be some great matchups. There's going to be some great games over the Thanksgiving holiday if you're visiting relatives and you want to go watch somebody else play that's not your local team. This will be the time to go. And if you're not out of state, as I will be, then you'll go. If you're a coach, you go watch your buddies play and that are still playing, and that's surely what I would be doing if I weren't headed to LA next week. But I will be in Lower Alabama celebrating Thanksgiving with them.
Well, have fun doing that, and hopefully all these practices on Thanksgiving go well. I do know that in our highest classification, the belle of the ball is going to be that Grayson Carrollton game. Grayson travels over to Carrollton in a rematch of last year's state title game where Grayson made Juju Lewis look like an infant for most of that game. And again, that should be a really good football team. Joe King is a heck of a football coach and has, and I think Carrollton, really that Carroll County area is probably the most talent-rich area in the state when it comes to the amount of teams they have successful and the talent levels at all of these. So that should be an exciting football game. Grayson is very well coached as well, and again, I think that has the opportunity to be a game of the year type game. You also have two other championship rematches where you have Marist headed over to our friends at North Oconee, and then you also have Prince Avenue having to go over to Hebron in that private category. Both of those games should be, I think, chalk for the most part. I think North Oconee will beat Marist, and I think Hebron will handle Prince. Hopefully, Hebron beating Prince doesn't run John Richt off as it did the previous coach. But I guess we will find out, one way or the other. But again, both matchups are excellent matchups. So you won't be bored. You will definitely have your pick of the litter. When North Oconee is probably the poorest team of the four, you know what you're getting into because between Marist, Hebron, Prince, and North Oconee, I mean, yeah, they're in steerage. So understand that's still going to be a heck of a football game. Now, also in our highest classification, you have North Gwinnett traveling to play West Forsyth. And West Forsyth's been on a roll, but I think North Gwinnett handles their business there. The Cinderella Mall, Walton County, the 4 seed, heads on down to Valdosta and playing the tin roof banging Valdosta Cats down there, and I think Valdosta will handle that. And then you have Douglas County at Buford. Again, I think Buford's playing good football, and they're not killing everybody, but I think that's just kind of how they've been playing this year. They kind of just boa constrictor you to death. Obviously, right now you have Gainesville going to Hughes in some capacity. Who knows? like we already mentioned, you have Jackson County hosting Rome, and you have Woodward at Thomas County Central. I think Woodward's a hell of a football team, but I think Thomas County Central is just, I mean, they're beating people to sleep. The best game that's not on everybody's radar might be Roswell at Sequoia. I think that's going to be a very, very competitive football game because both teams have got the offense and both teams can play some damn defense too. So that should be pretty good. And then in 4A, you have Creekside, which has scored 40 plus points in 11 games and has topped 69 points 6 times. Again, when we talk about beating people to sleep, that's what Creekside's doing. I don't think they believe in karma, because if they did, they probably would take their foot off the gas at some point and worry about it coming back and biting them in the ass. But honestly, I don't see anybody stopping Creekside. So, God bless you if you play them. Hopefully you get a T-shirt for showing up. Cartersville's at Kell. Give me Cartersville. And Central Carroll at Benedictine. Probably the biggest coin toss game, to be honest with you. Two very, very good football teams. Central Carroll has had some elite level move-ins this season. So they are definitely benefiting from people finding work in Carroll County and finding place of residence in Carroll County and making that bona fide move, that's for sure. So anything in those top three classifications game-wise, Coach?
No, I think they're all going to be good games. I agree with you on the Benedictine Central game being the biggest toss-up. Everything else is, as we try to get away, as we go into PSR, I was assured that it will get us away from the status quo, which is what we have, with 1 through 4. Well, it won't, because status quo is a mathematical term, and it's actually going to work out the same way it always does. It just allows 3 and 7 and 2 and 8 teams to make playoffs. Don't have any business being in there. The lower classification games that intrigue me, the Toombs County Northeast Macon game is a rematch of last year's state championship game. Should be really good. Fitzgerald going up to Heard County, that'll be interesting. Be a contrasting of styles game, single wing versus spread. Gordon Lee traveling down to Sylvester, Georgia, straight down 75. Have fun with that. That's going to be interesting. Beware the cannon. And then Pepperell and Rabun County. That's going to be a North Georgia game, and that's going to be should be a good contest. Two similar teams that do like to do the same kind of thing, run the football and play good defense. So that'll be good. Good matchup there. And the lower classifications, you got Brooks County going up to Lincoln County. I'll take Lincoln County. They're the only team that I think can beat Bowden, who we've already said is playing Jenkins County. Early County will be playing Screven County. That's going to be a really good football game. It's probably going to be really short because they like to run the ball. But those are two very physical and very athletically talented teams. That is going to be a great football game. And then you've got Clinch County playing Wheeler County. And I will take Clinch all day, every day in the swamp in that game. And that's all I've got for the two lowest classifications.
Yeah, I mean, I'll definitely let you take those because, again, what we don't have up here in Northeast Georgia is a bunch of lower class level teams. Obviously, we do still have representation with Rabun County right now, and I do think that's going to be a very close game. Both teams do a lot of the same and look very similar, so should be pretty interesting. Obviously, when we go to 2A, you have the number 1 ranked Carver Columbus. They're hosting Thompson. I think that they've won, I think, their last 4 games by blanking the opponents, and they've done so 8 times this year. So God bless you. It seems like they're going to just beat the piss out of you on offense and defense. And then you have Sumter at Carver, Atlanta. You have Hateville Charter at Morgan County, and you have Rockmart at Burke. The Rockmart-Burke game, I think, is going to be probably the best game in Double A that on Friday. So I think that's going to be pretty interesting. And then in AAA, you have Sandy Creek. They're going to have unranked Douglas, and they've won their last 10 games by at least 23 points. And the biggest thing about Douglas is they just knocked off defending champion Calhoun. And, I think that was probably one of the bigger surprises because Calhoun returned the quarterback and several of those skilled players from last year's team. So, I'm sure they're going to be back. That's a well-coached team in Calhoun and good culture. So, but good for Douglas. Douglas is not going to sneak up on Sandy Creek after that kind of result, though. Already mentioned Cairo coming up here to Jefferson. You have Jenkins headed over to West Lawrence and LaGrange after beating North Hall. They're going to Stevenson. And again, I think that of all of those, like I said, I don't know if there is a great game in AAA. I would like to see some competitive games across the board there. You have 8 good teams left. It's time to stop with the 42-0. I'd really like to see some competitive games and see what some of these teams are made of. And I think anytime you come up here to Northeast Georgia, Jefferson's a brand. They're a very well-known program, and Coach Nolan does a great job. I'll be interested to see how his team continues to improve and build on what they've done. And I've only watched a little bit of Cairo, so I can't be as transparent about what I think their chances are. But you've made it this far, so you're good enough. That's for dang sure. I'll be interested to see if they can give Jefferson a game into the fourth quarter.
And that wraps up the very long segment on the round 2. Of course, most of that was taken up with Gainesville, and we're going to now transition into the jobs. We had a couple of jobs come open this past week, and if you're a coach gearing up for the job search, you already know your portfolio can make or break your next opportunity. At coachingportfolio.com, we help coaches at every level stand out with elite professional-grade portfolios, resumes, and interview prep tools. From ready-to-use templates to custom-built documents, we take the guesswork out of the process. Whether you're chasing your first job or your dream job, be prepared, be polished, and be unforgettable. Visit coachingportfolio.com and make your next move with confidence. So I'd like to thank coachingportfolio.com. I'd like to encourage you all to check out the website and go take advantage of those services. You can still use Bubba and Earl's moving company if you need to get to a better opportunity, but you won't be able to make said move without having your portfolio, your resume, and all of your documents on point. And coachingportfolio.com can definitely get that done for you. So last week, Coach, we had 2 jobs come open. That was Wine to Barrow up there in your neck of the woods. They're the Bulldogs with 2 G's. And the Lanier County job came open. I'll speak on the Lanier County job, as I know that they already have their guy. It's the ball's in his court. If he wants it, it's his. If he doesn't, I'm sure they have a plan B. Lanier County, they have some athletes. They're in single A. Great community, great people there. I just don't know how long-term, how long you can sustain winning there with the people that are around you. Generally, if you have really good athletes, they end up migrating to other places from there. It's 20 minutes east of Valdosta. It's 30 to 45 minutes west of Waycross in the swamp. So, it's exactly the kind of place you would like to live, Coach.
Yeah, no, it sounds like my own personal hell, to be honest with you. So, hopefully, if they call, I think I'm going to let that one go voicemail. But yeah, so Winder, from the outside looking in, I've had out-of-state coaches reach out, and coaches from all around the state, send me DMs and stuff about, what I know about the Winder job. And the reality is, I'm not, I wouldn't say that I'm the most qualified person to give my opinion on it, but what I will say is Winder looks really great from the outside looking in when you look at some of the kids they get off the bus with and some of their facilities and some of that stuff. I would highly encourage you to reach out to Ed Dudley, Robert Paxia, Heath Webb, any of the coaches that have been at Winder. I'd encourage you to reach out to some of the assistant coaches that have been at Winder. There's a reason why they are moving on. There's a reason why there hasn't been a consistent, playoff push. There hasn't been a bunch of success year over year. Historically, it's a 4-6 job. I mean, that's just the reality. And when you look at it, since 1994, they've only made it to the second round one time. One time. And yes, you're in a region now with North Oconee and Jefferson, so you're playing for third. I think that there's a serious question that needs to be asked in any interview about, the support within the building from the principal, athletic director, assistant AD, as well as what's the support from the superintendent's office. What's the involvement in some of these decisions that are being made? Who's actually making the hire? Because if the principal, who never has played football or, quite frankly doesn't know anything about football, is making said hire, I think you kind of need to know what you're getting yourself into. If you're going to go there and expect to be able to do the things that you believe are going to be needed to be successful there, then I would highly encourage you to ask the tough questions and realize that there's a reason why the job is open. And there's a reason why they've had coaches like Brian Allison, like Heath Webb, like Ed Dudley, like Robert Paxia that have all won at other places. Why can't they win there? From a consistent standpoint, why can't they get them over the hump and not a first-round exit? And that's just the reality at Winder. You need to find out those questions. I think it's worth asking. I think that they are going to try to shoot the moon on who their short list is. And the reality is it's two-school county. I think that they have a lot of Gwinnett influence, and they try to be Gwinnett in a lot of different ways, and not the good ways. So understand you're battling a little bit of that. And the good news about being in a two-school county, you are the belle of the ball in the county. You're going to get anything first before Appalachia does. Anybody who moves to Winder, they're going to go to Winder. They're not really going to Appalachia unless you are 100% zone there and you are from out of state and had no clue. In that community, and they get all the community support as well. Because when you look up Winder on the map, it's actually a town in Georgia, whereas Appalachia is a river, a road, an area of an unincorporated area. So understand that there's just a lot of different opinions here about Winder. I think they're going to try to go and get a name, and the name's not going to win because they're not going to do what it takes to win. They're not willing to do it. They're not willing to help you do it. And at the end of the day, the person making the hiring choice reportedly has no idea what winning looks like. So buyer beware.
Well, there you go. And those are the only two jobs that came open this past week. We've got comprehensive lists on my website, your website, on Twitter, Georgia Football Scoop. He's got a list. I mean, there's multiple lists out there. The GHSA job tracker as well is out there that lets you know what jobs are open. And that pretty much wraps up this week. We didn't get to some other topics that we were hoping to get to, but that's okay. We'll save those for another time. You DM'd us a lot of great stories, whether they were horrific or just slap funny about visiting locker room situations. We are going to get to that at some point in time. We continue to encourage you to DM us with any of your stories, anything you'd like for us to talk about. Like I said, this is going to actually be dropped. We'll do 3 this week. We'll drop this one today. We'll drop another one on Wednesday. And I will have Coach Benji Harrison, the head coach at Habersham Central. Hab Central. Benji Harrison, head coach. He'll be with us, and his story will be released on Thursday. And, Coach, as always, I'd like to thank you for being on and sharing your unique perspective with us.
Appreciate you having me, and I look forward to recording again tomorrow. And as for those locker room stories, again, thank you guys for sending them. We're definitely going to get to them, but the amount of people that had to suffer through some toilets being in the middle of some locker rooms, as well as people who just, turn up the heat whenever it's in August. There's a special place in hell for some of y'all. I'm telling you right now. But good luck this weekend, guys, and safe travels if you're traveling anywhere and not having to practice on Thursday.
Thanks, Coach, and I'd like to thank everybody for tuning in. As always, coach hard, coach fast, and have fun. And remember, it's just satire. Season 7 of Sun Coaches Podcast is proudly brought to you by Titan Sensor. Season 7.